Power Talks, empowering you through the voice of truth with your host, Dr. Joel Hunter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Joel Hunter, host of Power Talks, empowering you through the voice of truth. On today's program, we'll be talking about Christian education, principals from 3 different Christian high schools in the Orlando area. Dr. Dana Dion of the Masters Academy in Oviedo, Mr. Richard Miller from Orangewood Christian School in Maitland, and Dr. Kevin Clark from the Geneva School will give us a glimpse into their everyday world and a glimpse of what it means to be engaged in Christian education. So thanks for being here, y'all.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, I want to tell whoever's listening of my natural relationship to all 3 of these. My grandkids go to Geneva School. It's a wonderful school, and therefore I have a lot of questions for you,
Sure.
Kevin. Dana is one of our family's very best friends. She's one of my wife's very best friends, and except for that death wish she seems to have by the adventures she goes on, skydiving and spelunking and zip lining.
Which Becky will never join me on.
I know. I don't want to be a widower. And so anyhow, but crazy about her. And Dick Miller is just one of the most encouraging guys I know. He's just been such an encouragement to me throughout the years personally, and so I just am so glad to have you on, brother. So anyhow, let's get to it. The reason I wanted to have this conversation is because many Christian students and many Christian parents don't know what their options are if they're thinking beyond public education. They don't know kind of what some of the different nuances are in private education, specifically Christian education. So let me start with maybe the most mysterious. Dr. Clark, could you explain what is classical Christian education?
Okay, classical Christian education, it's been a modern recovery, really, stemming from the work of folks like the Inklings, C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, Dorothy Sayers in the 1950s in particular, trying to connect to this pre-modern tradition of Christian education that takes the arts of math, the arts of language, Christian formation with a view toward wisdom and service of the community, and pulls together the curriculum and instruction with that formative Christian view and end. In a nutshell, really.
Yeah. Some of the things that I really do love about the school is how they get students involved in not in dramatic ways. It's not
literally,
just,
right?
Yeah, exactly. They've got a great drama department. There are. When the kids are in 4th grade, they do they're knights, and they have mentors and squire, all of this kind of stuff.
So you'll see these little 4th graders walking with their senior knights down the hallway, carrying their books, saying, "Make way for Sir so-and-so." Yeah.
That's great.
So it's fully engaged. So that's something that people can look into because there's a certain division of skills and arts as well as cognitive transfer that is important. Dick, let me come to you next. You've been at Orangewood for 25 years now. Orangewood is the only one of the educational systems we have represented here that are directly related to a local congregation. Tell us about, I'm so aware that there are a lot of church leaders that watch this program, and they may be considering a Christian school. And tell us about both the good, the bad, and the ugly, about what that relationship is like.
I'd be happy to. I have been at Orangewood for 25 years. Prior to Orangewood, I was at 4 different Christian schools for 2, 3, 4 years each one early in my career, and we did share facilities with a local church. And that can get really sticky, especially on Monday morning when the teachers come back into the classroom and the Sunday school classes rearrange their furniture or misplace their reading books, whatever it is. So you do have to do a kind of a dance to keep both sides of the equation happy and moving in the right direction. But I think that Orangewood especially, the relationship between the church and the school, on the church side and on the school side, we view this as a joint venture. Chuck Green, who founded Orangewood, his wish over his last 30 or 40 years was that the building would be used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yeah.
And we do a pretty good job of keeping it busy all that time. And it's a matter of give and take, and when something doesn't go right, you own it and you try and clear it up. And nobody's perfect, but when both sides trust each other, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I think when both sides are committed to the same mission, and really what we're trying to do is train the next generation of leaders as they, even now in high school, use the gifts that God's given them to advance or to build the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
So when you're both committed to that same mission, things get a little easier.
My grandson, my oldest grandson, went to Orangewood, loved it, just went in the Army.
Yes, I know.
Just shipped out. But what is the distinctive? Are there distinctives that Orangewood has?
Yes, I would like to think that it's distinctly Orangewood, but I'm sure it's shared by other Christian schools. I think something that we understand is that leadership actually is best demonstrated through service. And when you look at the way Jesus spent his life and time here on earth, we recognize one of the last things that he said was that you need to love each other. And I think it's easy for us to say, yeah, everybody says that. But he says, you need to love each other the way that I have loved you. And that's a different qualifier than just, hey, love everybody.
Yeah.
Because to love the way Jesus did, you've got to be willing to recognize people who are in struggle, whether that is a family or it's a student, and you have to be willing to engage on their level rather than trying to do a grand favor for them. We recognize that we're all children of God, and in that way we are equal, and we have to be willing to step into the mess that they're in right now and walk through that mess with them. And it requires kindness and patience, but I think that is more easily executed because we do understand the charge that we've been given.
Yeah, good. Dana, you, by the way, my wife taught at Masters, a little bit at Orangewood too, but she was a biology teacher for some years there, and that's how, and my son was actually, thanks to you, finished high school in 3 years.
Yes.
Went on to medical school after college, but so we've seen the Masters Academy grow from this little group of portables, you know, we went from one trailer to the, to this just magnificent campus now, and really great school. You've been there for 33 years. I can't believe you're not that old. You must have gone.
30 years. This is my 30th.
Oh, 30. Okay.
But still, that's still 30
I know,
years.
but
I still am old. I
You
know.
must have started when you were 15.
Yes, we'll go with that.
3, or even. But you've seen this growth.
Yes.
Tell us about the Masters Academy, its founding, and kind of what it's grown into.
Yeah. Well, one of the neat things is the name, because it truly is the Masters Academy. In fact, we've sent shirts and different things back if it doesn't have the apostrophe, because it's truly the Masters Academy. And that's, you know, with the founders, when they broke off of another school, that's one of their focus. That's what they wanted. They wanted it truly to be a school that everything that we do and say brings the Lord honor and glory. And so we've got programs for kids that struggle. We've got programs for kids that excel, that can take AP and graduate with college credit. We've got athletic programs and fine arts. And so we really want it to be a full picture for the kids. And I think they have a lot of opportunities, and we've seen that grow the larger that we get, which is kind of fun to be able to provide them more. I mean, I remember when we had to, load up in vans just to go practice somewhere. So now it's nice, which you guys are having that now, so that's nice. But it's nice to have your own field and your own location that you can kind of call your home. And so it's been neat to see that grow. And I do think that, God has blessed us, and a lot of that is going back to those founders, that they just based it on prayer and, where does the Lord want us to have for, facilities and in His timing. And so we're blessed to come off of their prayers.
Yeah.
And so
those are the Menengays, and they're wonderful people.
The
They are
Menengays,
wonderful
the
people.
West, the Cashons,
Yep.
absolutely,
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this, Kevin, I'll start with you, but this is open to y'all, because this is, a lot of times people put their kids in Christian school because they think that they'll be surrounded by good people, and there won't be any trouble there, and there's nobody ornery at a Christian school, and so therefore they can kind of cut themselves off from the world and be just in a Christian environment. Have you seen that to be true?
Yeah, of course. And I feel like there's kind of a truth and a falsity to that, right? I love that statement of Luther's when he says he went to the cloister in order to escape the world, only to find that the cloister was just one more corner of the world.
Yeah.
And we say that that's true. And when you're in a Christian school, it's still, you're in the world.
Yeah.
The world comes through the walls, and our children go into the world, and we live in the world every day. On the other hand, it's a community of Christian people who have come together, a faculty who feel a call in their lives to pursue godliness and to pursue the faith and learning, and understand that learning is intimately bound up with faith formation. And so we do have the opportunity to invite students into that every day, but we live in the real world, they live in the real world, and our goal is to train them to live wisely in the world as they go beyond our walls. So,
well, let me piggyback on that just a little bit. I know there's got to be kids that get in trouble at a Christian school. I mean, kids are kids, for crying out loud.
Right, masters.
Well, you all are principals, and
have them all. No.
and one of your responsibilities is discipline. Is the discipline in a Christian school different than the discipline in other kinds of schools?
I would say absolutely, and it ties back to the mission. One of the things that every time I do an intake interview, somebody who wants to apply to Orangewood, I make sure I underline for them they have not landed in utopia or nirvana. I've got kids that, 99% of the time, 99% of my kids get it right, but there are missteps and setbacks, and 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But even when the discipline gets very difficult, maybe you have to ask somebody to leave or they're getting suspended, I have to sit in on every one of those, because I view that as an opportunity to speak truth and love into their lives. And I have had this conversation more than I like, but I say to each one that is in that degree of trouble, I don't love you any less today than I did yesterday before I knew about this. What we are doing here is because we love you, not because we don't love you. Right. And sometimes you need a crisis in your life in order to make a change of direction. And so I want to make sure that even in discipline, and maybe I should say discipline may be one of those things that gives us an audience that is ready to hear. But even in that, we try and step into that from the basis of love, and that we are helping to groom them and grow them up to be good men and women that are doing the work of Christ in the world today. And so sometimes it gets messy. Grace is messy, is what I found out over the years. So,
Dana,
we've even had, since I've been there so long, but we've even had a student that we had to ask them to leave, and then a year later they came back, and it was really neat to hear them say, I don't think I would have really taken it seriously if you guys wouldn't have done that. So it was more of a wake-up call, and so they were thankful for that, because sometimes we get on that other end, well, you're a Christian school, you should just keep working with them. Well, at some point, being a Christian school is, I love you enough to say that what the rules and things that we put here, and you're not following it, you're starting to impact the other kids.
Yeah,
And so what's best for everyone is that maybe you're not here anymore.
There's a disfellowshipping, but the disfellowshipping in Matthew 18 was always about so that they would see that they belong here.
Right.
always with a view to redemption.
That's right.
Always
Exactly. Yeah, everything we do. You can't get away from the human condition.
Yeah. I think another discipline that's different. I mean, we still have some of the things they do in the public school that we have to deal with, but one of the other things that I think is different that I've seen more when teachers come from the public school is like they sometimes feel like we major on minor things, But that's important. It's the little things that add up. And so, if we've asked you not to chew gum, then don't chew gum.
Yeah.
And so little things can add up. And so sometimes they feel like we're nitpicking, but it's like, you got to be faithful in the little things.
That's
and
right.
it'll pay off.
I think to piggyback off of that, what I find interesting, and I have to remind myself of the facts, when I have a student transfer in from a public school, usually, it takes them about 6 months to figure out who we are and what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They've grown up with this dynamic where it's the student's job to do as much as you can get away with, and it's the
Right.
teacher's administrator's job to catch you doing it.
Right,
And I've seen this look on some of their faces like, wait a minute, it's supposed to be us against them, and you guys don't do it that way.
Yeah.
But it's not something they
That's
understand
great.
overnight.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
But eventually they do understand we
Yeah.
are on the same team and we are on your side.
Yeah.
And that makes a
Excellent.
difference. So.
Yeah.
Kevin, I know that from our experience with Geneva, and I suspect the same is true with Masters and Orangewood, you work a lot with the families, not just with the students. You have Grandparents' Day, we're always watching the next grandchild draw a picture or, put something together, make a craft with the grandparents or interview the grandparents. And
I feel like you're getting good at those crafts.
I mostly watch Becky do it because she has mercy on me, but I cheered them both on. And I know how important it is that you involve the families within the lives of the students. Why is that approach? I can open this up to all of you, but let me start with you, Kevin. Why do you think that approach is so important in education?
Well, there's a couple levels you can answer that question. One is at the deepest level of Christian conviction. The view coming out of the scriptures, whether it's in Deuteronomy or whether it's the Apostle Paul talking in Ephesians, that the family God has specially ordained in order to raise and train children in the fear and admonition of the Lord. And if the school exists, it exists in order to equip parents, in order to help them fulfill that call for the church, for the life of the world. And so in one sense, we have to do that because that's where education takes place. In another sense, we talk about it all the time, 360-degree education at school, that we live in a culture that has, amnesia, I think. It's forgotten the faith and forgotten all the principles that, our civilization was founded on, that came from Christ and came from the scriptures. And it's a re-education. It's an opportunity to reach into lives of families and not just transform children's education, but also, you've seen it. You've met some of the families I have over the years where the whole family comes together as their child is being educated. And so it's an opportunity really to have an impact for the gospel, for the kingdom of God through education.
Good.
Yeah, we see it as a partnership, which is neat. Now, the one program that we have is an international program, which is harder to have a partnership with the parents because it's with the host family. But a couple years ago, we had one young lady from China, and the host family that she stayed in, it happens to be our custodian or janitor, and she's a godly woman. And so that young lady ended up accepting the Lord. And she went home and led her mom to the Lord.
Oh, wow.
And then just this past year, her mom led her mom to the Lord, so now her mom and grandma. And so it's kind of a neat that our focus is family, even when it's the international and, it's that relationship, because it's definitely, you want to partner with the families that, God has given the kids to them, and we get the privilege to come alongside them. And so,
That's so great.
I think that we view it as a three-legged stool. I'm sure you've used that analogy before, where you've got the home, and you've got the church, and you've got the school, and it's pretty hard to sit on a stool that only has two legs. But when you have all three, it tends to, I think, mutually support each of the other groups. I know, and just from a really pragmatic standpoint, as I was growing up, believe it or not, I was not a model student. I know that's hard to understand. But,
No.
I wasn't either. I think that's what it
I think that's, we'll agree.
Because I tell the kids that you're going to end up principal, you better be careful.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want the Lord to call you to be a teacher?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, yeah.
That's right.
Well,
Yep.
we're probably not supposed to use the word karma, but it's kind of like.
Yeah.
But I think that in high school, when I was faced with decisions about to do or not to do something that probably was edgy, it wasn't just one thing that kept me going in the right direction. One, if my mom sees this, I hope you don't take it the wrong way, but fear of my dad. I did not want to have to deal with him when he found out that, you know. And the other was I had a degree of Christian conviction. I was a believer in high school. But even that would not have stood up on its own under pressure. And then for me, in my situation, I had friends who'd made some really bad decisions, and just the consequences, I said, I don't need to do that. And so I think it's a combination of things, and I do believe it's important for all of us to work together, because that multifaceted cord that binds us together.
Yeah, I've got, the time is passing so fast, but I know that people who are listening to us are thinking, boy, this sounds so great, but it costs so much. I mean, this is expensive to send your child to a private school. If you have more than one child, it's really expensive. Tell us a little bit about how you can make it at least possible or affordable for families that don't have a great deal of money. I mean, are there programs that you have, scholarships or anything like that, for you know, special seasons or you know, how do you do that?
We have a financial aid committee that parents will submit a request for financial aid, and we distribute that based on need. And it's not something that we alone determine, especially because of FHSAA and fair competition. It goes to a third-party evaluator to say, okay, this is what we can expect the family to pay, and this is what we can award. And that's just one of the things that we do.
Okay.
We have that as well, that it can go up all the way up to 50%, then if it's a need basis. And then we do accept McKay, so they can have a scholarship with that. And there's a Family First.
And then there's Step Up.
Step Up,
That's an important program.
Step Up is a really important program that the state recognizes, and it's based on need as well, but it can pay, I don't know.
Upwards of $7,000 a year.
Yeah.
Oh, are those state funds?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. The legislators in Florida who put it together, they're state funds. They're actually corporate tax deferrals that go to a non-state agency. So it's a privately administered state funding program. So some of the issues around the Blaine Amendment that would keep state funds from going to religious institutions don't apply to Step Up for Student funds. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's based on federal income guidelines, but I know all of our schools accept those. And similarly, we have a generous scholarship program, probably to the chagrin of the reaccreditation committee, saying you can't give that much philanthropy at a school, but the board's committed to having the school open to people from all income.
I met with a kid who graduated 4 or 5 years ago, and he said, Mr. Miller, I'm trying to tell the people in my family and in my neighborhood that they can afford to go to Orangewood, but they won't hear me, because when they look at the tuition, they say, there's no way we can do that. And I'm trying to tell them that these things are available, but they won't believe me. So I'm telling you, those funds are available, and we try to use those wisely, but it does make it possible for more people to attend.
Great, great. Well, I think that one of the things that that I wanted for the audience to be able to hear is just both the educational emphasis, but also the personal emphasis that comes out in all of your personalities, because when you think of your child's education, you think of your child, and that is not just a content download that you're thinking of. You're thinking, boy, I've got a kid that's unique. I don't care whether they're a high achiever or they have attention span of a gnat. This is my kid. And I, rather than think of a system, I want to think of, how are these people going to love my kid? How are these people going to be there for this particular individual, because I got multiple kids and all of them are way different. So you guys understand all that. We're out of time. I hate this, but thank you for coming on. You are all in different ways very important in my life, and so I appreciate you. And today's simple help was to make a list of people that you really appreciate, and I appreciate all of you. And so I just told the whole world that. We're out of time. I hate to be out of time, but I want to thank you and our panelists, Dr. Dion, Mr. Miller, and Dr. Clark, for joining us on Power Talks. Remember, these discussions are just that, discussions among us. But we'd love to see you continue the discussions at home and go one step further. Get involved, because when power talks, you are empowered through the voice of truth. See you next time.
You just watched Power Talks, a Good Life 45 original production that makes you part of our Hope Team here on Good Life 45, where hope happens.